Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where someone smiled warmly, spoke kindly, yet something inside you felt uneasy? You couldn't quite explain it, but there was a sense of pressure, confusion, maybe even guilt, and you didn't know why. That feeling isn't imaginary, it's your intuition, and at this stage of your life, it deserves your attention. The reality is, manipulation doesn't always appear obvious. It can be disguised in politeness, hidden in questions like, "Don't you trust me?" or "Why would I lie?" These aren't meant to build trust, they're meant to create control. Unfortunately, many older adults become targets, not because they lack experience, but because they've been taught to be courteous, patient, and avoid conflict. Now more than ever, it's time to protect your inner peace. You've lived through too much, learned too much, and earned too much to let anyone shake your confidence with a few well-placed words. In this video, we'll uncover the subtle ways manipulation can creep in through questions, and more importantly, how to respond with confidence, clarity, and steady resolve. Your voice matters. And no one, not even someone close to you, has the right to silence it. Let's start with one of the most subtle and manipulative questions of all. Don't you trust me? At first it sounds soft, even sweet, like a gentle appeal to connection, but underneath, it's a pressure tactic. It's not meant to create understanding. It's meant to shut you down by making you feel like the problem for simply wanting clarity. Imagine you're talking to a family member, a neighbor, or even someone in a medical office. You ask a simple question, "Can you explain that again? Because something doesn't sit right." Instead of giving you an honest answer, they smile and lean back. "Don't you trust me?" Suddenly, the conversation is no longer about facts. It's about your loyalty, your character, your doubt. This is emotional redirection, turning your valid need for information into a reason to make you feel guilty. And for many older adults who grew up valuing politeness, it's easy to fall into this trap. We were raised to avoid conflict, to give others the benefit of the doubt. But there's a difference between kindness and self-abandonment. Let me be very clear, asking questions is not rude. It shows strength, not suspicion. It shows that you are present, engaged, and wise enough to seek clarity. At your age, you don't need to apologize for protecting your peace of mind. If someone gets defensive when you ask for information, that says more about them than it does about you. Here's a simple line you can use the next time someone asks, "Don't you trust me?" Take a breath, stay calm, and say, "Trust matters to me. That's why I ask questions, so I can understand fully." This gentle yet firm response reclaims your right to question without sounding combative. You don't have to argue, you don't have to explain yourself further. The truth is, honest people welcome your questions. They don't flinch. They don't act wounded. They explain, they listen, and they respect your curiosity, because people with nothing to hide aren't afraid of being seen clearly. Manipulators, on the other hand, count on your silence. You've spent a lifetime developing intuition, learning how to read between the lines. That quiet discomfort in your gut, that's not paranoia, it's wisdom, and it's time we start honoring that wisdom. You've earned the right to ask for the truth and to walk away from anything that refuses to give it. So remember this, when someone says, "Don't you trust me?" you don't owe them a yes, you owe yourself clarity. And that begins with one simple decision: never apologize for listening to your instincts. They've carried you this far. Trust them to carry you forward. Another manipulative question that often slips under the radar is this one: why would I lie? On the surface, it sounds like a fair challenge. It pretends to be honest, but really, it's a smokescreen. This question isn't about truth. It's about making you feel bad for even having doubts. Picture this: someone offers you a business idea, asks for a loan, or shares a story about a family issue. You pause. Something doesn't quite add up. So you politely ask for more details, and instead of answering, they tilt their head and say, "Why would I lie?" Suddenly you're no longer focused on the facts. You're focused on defending your right to ask. It's a mental sleight of hand, a tactic used to make your concern feel like an insult. And if you're like many people raised to see the best in others, that one line can work, especially when it comes from someone you care about, someone who's always seemed trustworthy. But here's what you must remember. People don't lie because they have a bad reason. They lie because it gets them something. Whether it's money, control, sympathy, or protection, manipulation often wears the mask of charm. And the older we get, the more likely we are to encounter people who mistake our kindness for naivety. That's why we must learn to pause, not panic, when something feels off. Asking questions is not disrespect, it's self-respect. Here's what you can say next time someone hits you with "Why would I lie?" Say this calmly: "That's a fair question, but I still need more information to feel comfortable." You're not accusing anyone, you're simply protecting your right to understand. If they respond with defensiveness or guilt-tripping, that's another red flag. Let their reaction reveal the truth. Let me share something that happened to a woman named Margaret, who was in her 70s. Her nephew asked for a loan to start a business. When she asked questions, he laughed and said, "Aunt Margaret, why would I lie to you?" She felt embarrassed for doubting him and wrote the check. 6 months later, she found out the business never existed. Margaret didn't lose because she lacked intelligence. She lost because she ignored her instinct in the face of emotional pressure. And that's exactly why this message matters. You are not too old to be cautious. You are not too polite to say, "I need more time." You are not too trusting to ask, "Can you explain that again, clearly?" So the next time someone asks you, "Why would I lie?" don't answer the question. Instead, return to your center. Ask, "Does this make sense? Is there proof? Do I feel rushed or manipulated?" Your peace of mind is more important than anyone's ego, and the people who truly care about you will never punish you for being thoughtful. Now let's talk about a question that might sound like a gesture of trust but often hides something more dangerous. Can you keep a secret? It may feel flattering, like someone sees you as trustworthy, as someone special, but that's exactly what makes it so tricky. Because sometimes that question isn't about trust, it's about silence. The problem isn't in the words, it's in the timing. When someone asks if you can keep a secret before telling you what it's about, what they're really doing is asking you to agree to stay quiet, no matter what comes next. That's not fair, and it's not safe. It's a clever way of locking your voice before they even hand you the key. Let me tell you about Frank, a retired mechanic in his early 70s. One day, a younger co-worker called him and whispered, "Frank, can you keep a secret?" Out of habit and kindness, Frank said, "Yes." Then the man revealed their former boss had been quietly stealing retirement funds from several employees, including Frank. Now Frank was stuck because he'd promised to stay silent about something that hurt him. This is exactly how manipulation works. It disguises itself as intimacy. It uses your sense of loyalty, your good heart, against you. And for older adults especially, who value discretion and respect, that pressure can feel overwhelming. But here's the truth: your loyalty should never cost you your peace of mind. So the next time someone asks, "Can you keep a secret?" pause. You don't need to say yes. You don't even need to answer right away. Instead, say something simple and strong. "Tell me first, and then I'll decide if I'm comfortable keeping it between us." This keeps you in control. It shows you're thoughtful, not naive. And if what they share feels wrong, morally, emotionally, or legally, you are not obligated to stay silent. That's not betrayal, that's integrity. You've lived long enough to know that sometimes doing the right thing means breaking someone else's expectations, and the right people will understand that. Remember, not all secrets are red flags, but any request for secrecy should be a moment to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, are they protecting someone or covering something up? Are they drawing me in or trapping me? You are allowed to wait. You are allowed to ask questions, and you are allowed to say no. At this stage in life, your clarity is a gift. Your conscience is your guide, and your voice is not something anyone has the right to borrow without your full permission. You've earned the right to live in peace, not in confusion. Let your boundaries speak, even when someone whispers. There's a question that might seem innocent, even casual, but it's one of the most manipulative of all. Who told you that? At first glance, it sounds like curiosity, but in many cases it's a deflection. It's not meant to solve a problem. It's meant to change the subject, shift the blame, and make you feel like you did something wrong just for bringing it up. Let's say you hear something concerning, maybe about a family issue, a financial matter, or something going on in your community. You bring it up with the hope of clarity or resolution, but instead of being met with understanding, the other person narrows their eyes and says, "Who told you that?" Just like that, the conversation pivots away from the issue and toward your source, as if the real problem isn't what happened, but that you know about it. This tactic is especially effective on older adults who have strong values around loyalty and privacy. If you've spent a lifetime avoiding gossip or trying to protect relationships, that question can hit a nerve. Suddenly, you feel like maybe you shouldn't have asked at all. Maybe you've crossed a line. But here's what you need to remember. Asking questions is not betrayal, it's responsibility. Let me take you back to Frank's story. After learning that his retirement benefits may have been mishandled, he gathered the courage to confront his former manager. He didn't accuse anyone, he simply asked for clarification, and the manager's first response wasn't to explain or deny. It was, "Who told you that?" No concern, no accountability, just a sharp redirection toward the source. That moment told Frank everything he needed to know. It wasn't about solving the problem, it was about tracing the leak, finding the whistleblower, and protecting appearances. It was about control, and that's when Frank realized he didn't owe anyone an answer to that question. He owed himself the truth. If someone tries to redirect you with, "Who told you that?" don't fall into the trap. Stay calm, stay steady. You don't need to name anyone. You don't need to justify your curiosity. Just say this: "Let's focus on whether it's true, not where I heard it." That one sentence brings the conversation back to what matters: facts, fairness, and integrity. People who care about you won't attack your curiosity. They won't make you feel ashamed for wanting clarity. They'll respect that you brought something forward, even if it's hard to hear. But manipulators, they'll always try to shift the spotlight away from their actions and onto your source, because they fear being seen clearly. And here's the deeper truth: the older you get, the more powerful your calm becomes. You don't have to shout or accuse, you just have to hold your ground. A lifetime of experience has given you a radar that's sharper than ever. You can feel when someone's dodging, you can sense when the story doesn't line up, and you have every right to follow that instinct. So if a conversation ever makes you feel like the bad guy for asking a fair question, step back and breathe. Remind yourself that truth doesn't fear questions, only lies do. And you don't need to apologize for seeking the truth, especially when it involves your well-being, your finances, or your peace of mind. You've spent decades earning the right to live with dignity, transparency, and honesty. Don't let anyone, family, friend, or stranger, turn your voice into a liability. If someone's first concern is, "Who told you?" instead of, "How can we make this right?" they've already told you everything you need to know. There's one question that can do more damage than most people realize, especially as we get older. It sounds simple, maybe even harmless, but when used the wrong way, it can make you question everything, including your own mind. That question is, "Don't you remember?" And if you've ever heard it used against you, you know just how painful it can be. As we age, it's normal to forget things from time to time. A name, a date, why we walked into a room. It happens to everyone. But some people take advantage of that natural forgetfulness. They twist it. They use it to make you doubt your memory, your decisions, and your reality. That's not forgetfulness. That's gaslighting, and it's emotional manipulation at its most personal. Imagine this: someone insists you agreed to something you know you didn't, like giving a gift, saying yes to a favor, or promising to stay silent. When you ask for clarification, they say it gently, almost hurt. Don't you remember? Now you're off balance. You start wondering if maybe they're right. Maybe you did forget. And once that doubt creeps in, it can shake your confidence to the core. That's exactly what happened to Joyce, a retired school teacher in her early 70s. Her daughter asked to borrow a small amount of money. Joyce agreed, but only as a loan. Months later, when she asked about repayment, her daughter looked shocked and said, "Don't you remember? You said it was a gift." Joyce didn't recall saying that at all, but her daughter seemed so certain, so detailed, so confident. Joyce started to question her own memory. For weeks she carried that doubt, not because of the money, but because she felt like her grip on truth had slipped. That's the real danger of this kind of manipulation. It doesn't just hurt your relationship, it hurts your trust in yourself. And that kind of damage can be hard to heal unless we recognize what's happening and take back control. So what can you do? First, take a breath. When someone says, "Don't you remember?" and you feel that flash of panic or confusion, pause. You don't need to agree or argue. Just say, "That doesn't sound familiar to me. Let me think about it." This response gives you space. It puts a gentle stop on the pressure without escalating the situation. Second, write things down. Keep a notebook, a calendar, or even sticky notes around the house. Document important conversations, what was said, who said it, and when. If someone makes a claim later, you'll have something to refer back to. This isn't about paranoia, it's about peace of mind. Your memory may fade, but a written record never lies. And most importantly, trust your instincts. You've lived a long, rich life. You've handled hard decisions, raised families, and navigated complex relationships. You know what honesty feels like, and you can sense when someone is using your uncertainty to gain the upper hand. You don't need perfect memory to know when something feels wrong. People who love and respect you won't weaponize your forgetfulness. They won't act offended when you ask for clarity. They'll help you remember, not twist your doubt. But people who manipulate want one thing: control, and they'll use your age, your kindness, and your hesitation to get it, unless you draw the line. So the next time someone says, "Don't you remember?" and your chest tightens or your stomach turns, pause, listen to that feeling. You've earned the right to question anything that feels off, and you never have to doubt your right to protect your truth, because your mind is not negotiable. It's yours, and no one, not even someone you love, has the right to rewrite your reality. Let's pause for a moment and take a breath, because everything we've talked about so far leads to one essential truth: awareness is your power. Every manipulative question, whether it's "Don't you trust me?" or "Don't you remember?" only works if it catches you off guard. But the moment you start to see the pattern, the game loses its grip. You're no longer reacting, you're responding with wisdom. Many older adults were raised to be agreeable, to avoid making waves, to let things go for the sake of peace. And while those values can be beautiful, they can also be used against you. The more patient and polite you are, the more some people believe they can push past your boundaries without resistance. That's why it's so important, now more than ever, to realize you're allowed to pause, you're allowed to question, you're allowed to say no. Being nice doesn't mean being silent. Being loyal doesn't mean allowing yourself to be misled. The people who truly care about you, your real allies, want you to feel safe, heard, and informed. They don't get defensive when you ask for details. They don't guilt you for needing time. In fact, they appreciate that you're clear and intentional. That's the kind of connection that grows from respect. So, how do you protect yourself from emotional manipulation moving forward? It starts with developing a few simple, powerful habits. First, listen to your body. That tightness in your chest, the knot in your stomach, the hesitation in your voice. These aren't random, they're signals. At your age, they're the result of decades of life experience. Your intuition has been sharpened, not dulled. Use it. Second, speak from a place of calm strength. When someone tries to pressure you into silence or compliance, take a breath. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain yourself endlessly. Just say something like, "I'm not comfortable with that," or "I need time to think before I answer." These phrases are short, clear, and powerful. They give you space while letting others know you're not easily pushed. Third, create a small system that helps you stay grounded. This could be a notebook where you track important conversations, a trusted friend you can debrief with, or even a daily habit of writing down how certain interactions made you feel. These small practices build emotional clarity, and clarity, over time, becomes your shield. Finally, and most importantly, remind yourself that you've earned the right to live without emotional games. You've spent decades building a life, overcoming hardship, learning who you are. No one gets to twist your values, your voice, or your memory for their own benefit. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't need proof to honor your instincts. You are not too sensitive. You are not overthinking. You are someone who has lived long enough to know that when something feels wrong, it probably is. And while the world may have changed, your right to stand tall, ask questions, and walk away from dishonesty hasn't. In fact, that right has only grown stronger with time. So, as you move forward, carry this with you. You don't need to fight to be heard. You just need to speak with quiet conviction, and the moment you stop doubting your own awareness, manipulation no longer stands a chance. That's not just aging with grace, that's aging with power. You've spent a lifetime listening, giving, and keeping the peace. But now it's your time to stand firmly in your truth. The world may expect you to shrink with age, but the truth is, this is the season to expand your voice, your clarity, and your self-respect. You don't need to explain your instincts. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You've earned the right to question, to pause, to walk away, and to protect your peace, without guilt, without apology. So, if this message spoke to something deep inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone you care about, another friend, a sibling, a neighbor, someone who may have felt that same tightness in their chest and thought they were alone. Leave a comment below if you've ever faced one of these questions and what you would do differently now. Your story might be the light someone else needs to see clearly. And if you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. This is a space for truth, for calm strength, and for living with dignity. No matter your age, you've earned your wisdom. Now it's time to use it. Stay strong, stay aware, and never give your power